Trump regime with the head of the CIA and the intelligence and the defense secretary, etc., in which a journalist who's not a Trump fan was invited on to the call. No one seems to know why, and was privy to this classified information that related to a imminent bombing of Yemen. And that was kind of strange enough. But then the Trump regime denied it was classified or anything that people shouldn't know about was discussed. And the journalist then revealed the fact that there was. So the ease with which these people lie is shocking. I'm going to get into that later on. But the dismantling of the separation of powers between the courts, Congress, and Trump, the executive, has gone on being dismantled. And we've reached the point where Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, is threatening to cut off funding, in effect, shut down courts that disagree with Trump.
We do have authority over the federal courts, as you know. We can eliminate an entire district court. We have power funding over the courts and all these other things. But desperate times call for desperate measures, and Congress is going to act. So stay tuned for that.
So, what is going on? Well, it's something called the Dark Enlightenment and acceleration. Dark Enlightenment is the ideology that the Trump regime is blatantly following, and acceleration is the speed getting faster and faster and faster of imposing the ideology of the Dark Enlightenment. So, some background. One of the advocates of this, by the way, is a guy called Peter Thiel, who's pulling the strings in the background of this whole Trump regime and the move towards the AI-controlled society. Peter Thiel, he's anti-globalist, but well, actually, he's not. He's on the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group, which is as globalist as you can get. So he supports this Dark Enlightenment stuff. And among the ideological drivers of it have been a guy called Nick Land, who's described as the godfather of accelerationism, and Curtis Yarvin, who, with this chap Land, are the kind of spiritual architects of the Dark Enlightenment and its accelerationism, which is their modus operandi to bring it in. And what this Dark Enlightenment is about is getting rid of democracy, getting rid basically of elections in the sense of appointing a monarch to run the country. Now, that's not necessarily a royal monarch. It's like a CEO of a corporation who then runs the country like a corporation, like a tyrant. And if you look at what's happening in America, with all these executive orders flying around like machine gun fire from Trump, one man is signing them and they're becoming the law of the land and dictating the direction of the country. That's straight off the pages of the Dark Enlightenment and the CEO. So, big tech billionaires and frontline Trump MAGA politicians and operatives have said they're influenced by this guy, Curtis Yarvin. Peter Thiel said Yavin is his most important connection, and Thiel supplied startup funding for Yavin's technology company, Urbit. Trump supporter and his former political strategist, Steve Bannon, is said to admire Yavin's work. And Vice President J.D. Vance cites Yavin as an influence. And you can see the ideological foundations of this dark enlightenment in the Musk-Trump connection and why they're doing what they are. So Yavin wants government to be imposed by a corporate-like structure, which he dubs GovCorp. Here's a quote. "It is essential to squash the democratic myth that a state, quote, belongs to the citizenry. The point of neo-cameralism, tyranny, is to buy out the real stakeholders in sovereign power, not to perpetuate sentimental lies about mass enfranchisement. Once the universe of democratic corruption is converted into a freely transferable shareholding in GovCorp, the owners of the state can initiate rational corporate governance." And this is happening before our eyes. And this is an article by a journalist called Andy Beckett on the UK Guardian. And, you know, I know MAGA, it's the Guardian. And, you know, the Guardian is a very woke-dominated publication. But what is said here is true. And the point surely is whether it's true or not who said it. Accelerationists, the article says, argue, see if this makes any sense of the Trump regime since he came to power for the second time. Accelerationists argue that technology, particularly computer technology and capitalism, particularly the most aggressive global variety, should be massively sped up and intensified. Accelerationists favor automation. They favor the further merging of the digital and the human. And what I've been pointing out is, with all the smokescreens that are thrown at the MAGA to think they're winning, the real agenda going on behind that smokescreen is the control of society by AI and the fusion of humans and AI. So the article goes on. They often favor the deregulation of business. That's what people like Musk are doing, because you don't want regulation to mean that you have to conform to certain values. You want a free-for-all. So they often favor the deregulation of business and drastically scaled back government. They believe that people should stop deluding themselves that economic and technological progress can be controlled. They often believe that social and political upheaval has value in itself. And what is that value? It's dismantling the status quo so that you can replace it with another one, a more advanced form of control through AI. So when Musk took the stage with Trump and said he is not just MAGA, he is dark MAGA, had the dark baseball cap on, well, maybe he should have said, I'm dark Enlightenment MAGA. And like I say, the executive orders that are firing out of the Oval Office are are right in line with it. And then there's this, got an itch. Then there's this, Project 2025. Beyond my wildest dreams, the architect of Project 2025 is ready for his victory lap. Now, during the election campaign, news of this Project 2025, which is like a 900-page wish list of things the incoming, they hoped at that time, the incoming Trump administration would do, was issued by something called the Heritage Foundation. And the director of this Project 2025 was a guy called Paul Dans. Now, what happened is that because it wasn't good, what was in it, for the election prospects, shall we say, of Donald Trump, he denied knowing anything about it. He denied having ever seen it and then started talking about bits that were in it, which is kind of bizarre. He wouldn't be lying, though. Donald Trump doesn't lie. Not every frickin' minute, anyway. So this guy, Dans, was basically, shall we say, encouraged to fall on his sword and walk away to kind of help the fact that, or the perception of the fact that this Project 2025 nothing to do with Trump. Well, he's just done an interview and again, connects into what I've been saying so far. And he's saying that it's beyond his wildest dreams to see that since Trump came to office this time, the wish list of Project 2025 has been unfolding extremely quickly. So Dan's effectively confirmed, this article says, what Democrats were saying all along. Democrats can't talk. They're just another wing of the same one-party state. But Dan's effectively confirmed what Democrats were saying all along, and Trump himself denied. There really is almost no difference between Project 2025 and what Trump was planning all along and is now implementing. And if the White House were to call, he said he'd be glad to get back on the team. So this attack on the separation of powers, the checks and balances, that mean that the three areas of government, the executive, the president in this case, the courts, and Congress, the legislature, means that, or the idea is that one cannot completely operate as a tyranny because the other two are there to balance it. So if you want a tyranny, if you want a dark Enlightenment tyranny with a CEO, then what you have to do is stop any checks and balances on the power of the executive. And that's what's happening. We've had Capitol Hill neutered, and now we're having attacks on the courts to basically delete them from the game of checks and balances. And this is never more obvious than in these cases of migrants who are going through the process seeking asylum legally, who are being put on planes to this El Salvador prison, which is horrific. And even though the courts are saying, or some judges are saying, you can't do that, they're doing it anyway. What are you going to do about it? We own the military. How are you going to enforce what you're saying? This is where it's going. So what Trump has done is use something called the Alien Enemies Act. Act of 1798. And it's a wartime authority that allows the president to detain or deport the natives and citizens of an enemy nation. So what he's done is claim that the migrants are kind of an invasion or a form of war. So he can invoke this act. Now, this Alien Enemies Act has only been invoked 3 times before, and every time it was during a major conflict, the War of 1812, the World War I, and the World War II. So it means that you can do what you bloody like without due process and going through the courts. And this act is being used by the Trump regime to deport migrants who are going through the process as they should, and sending them to this horror prison in El Salvador. And this is what awaits them.
It looks like a sea of skin and tattoos. These images released by El Salvador's government shows the transfer of about 2,000 inmates, stripped to their shorts and with their heads shaved, to what's been dubbed the country's new mega prison. It just opened. It's believed to be the largest prison in the Americas with a capacity for 40,000 people, and it's the latest step in a controversial crackdown on crime that's caused the country's prison population to soar. Human rights organizations have reported that innocent people have been caught up in the law enforcement campaign. That includes dozens, they say, who have died in police custody. Last year, the country's president asked Congress for emergency powers to temporarily suspend some constitutional rights after a massive spike in murders attributed to gang crime. It includes that arrests can be made without a warrant and detainees no longer have a right to a lawyer. Private communications of all citizens can also be accessed by the government. Since then, about 64,000 suspects have been arrested, and murder reports fell about 57% last year.
What has happened is that Trump has imposed quotas on the border police called ICE. Quotas of, according to this story, 1,800 arrests a day across the United States. I've seen 1,500 as well. And it says the Trump administration is demanding at least 1,800 arrests per day from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, setting a quota of 75 busts minimum for each of the agency's 25 offices, according to multiple sources. ICE has made more than 4,500 arrests since Trump's return to office and has conducted raids in major sanctuaries, including New York, Denver, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Boston. But this was not enough for Trump. He wanted more. So he introduced this quota. And what this means is that you run out of violent criminals, which I'm all for getting them out of the country. But if you're going to meet the quotas, then you have to go into that area of migrants who are going through the process legally. In fact, you have to start targeting people like tourists and Europeans passing through the country. And Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, accompanied the feds in a raid, it says, in Chicago on Sunday. But he said that they are prioritizing the arrests of illegal migrants with criminal records who pose threats to the country. Okay, but they're not. I think the president's happy, but we're going to make him a lot happier, he said. We're not going to let up. we're gonna put our foot on the gas and we're gonna go. Now, first of all, just my view, but if you observe Tom Homan, he doesn't seem to be the sharpest pin in the box, to say the least. And he's got two colors, the only colors he can see, black and white. You're for us or you're against us. And he absolutely worships Trump. And he was asked here what he meant by saying that he didn't care what the court said.
So what do you mean when you say, I don't care what judges think?
No, I don't care what that judges think. As far as this case, we're going to continue to arrest public safety threats and national security threats. We're going to continue to deport them from the United States. I understand this case is in litigation through the Alien Enemies Act, and we'll abide by the court order as litigated. But my quote was, despite what he thinks, we're going to keep targeting the worst of the worst, which we've been doing since day one, and deporting from the United States through the various laws on the books. We're not making this up. The Alien Enemies Act was actually a federal law. It's a statute enacted by Congress and signed by a president. Now, that's under litigation. But put that aside, we still have Title VIII authority to remove illegal aliens from the United States, and we're going to continue to concentrate on those who are the biggest threat to our communities, the public safety threats.
But you're going to abide by court orders as long as, and go through your appeals process, but you are not going to defy those orders.
No.
Note the hesitation at the end there, because he is defying what the courts have said. And they are saying that people that have tattoos that are perfectly innocent tattoos are actually gang members of this Venezuelan gang, and thus they need to be deported and taken off to El Salvador, when they're not members of this gang at all. Gay Venezuelan makeup artist among hundreds deported without due process. The man's lawyer says he was disappeared to El Salvador after being falsely accused of gang affiliations. A 23-year-old makeup artist with no known gang affiliation was among the hundreds of Venezuelan men deported to El Salvador's infamous prison without due process last week. He's gay. His name's Andres. His last name has been withheld because of concerns for his safety. Initially arrived in the US seeking asylum, but was detained after immigration officials decided his tattoos could be a sign of gang affiliation. His attorney firmly denies this accusation. They're not tattoos of someone involved in gangs, she says. These are normal tattoos that you would see on anybody at a coffee shop anywhere in the United States or Venezuela. So he has been sent to El Salvador, despite a judge's order saying that he must have due process, and he was sent with 250 other men without any legal review. And he's now in this 40,000 capacity horrific prison. And this is his lawyer talking about what happened to him.
We know that it is inevitable that our client will be identified, and we feel it's important to let the world know who Andrei, our client, is, because he is a human being. He is a young professional from Venezuela. He's a makeup artist. He is a gay man. He is someone who came to the United States seeking protection. He came seeking asylum. Upon entry into the United States, he was detained because of his tattoos, some of which you can see in those photos, but these are not the tattoos of somebody who is involved with gangs. These are normal tattoos that you would see on anybody at a coffee shop anywhere in the United States or Venezuela. And Today, we have confirmation from the government, one of the few groups or attorneys that have confirmation that our client is indeed in El Salvador. Our client last week was supposed to appear in court where we would have started the process of refuting the baseless allegations against him, but we never got to have that chance. Our client has been forcibly removed and disappeared, and we don't know what his legal case, where it goes from here.
This will give you a feel for the attitude, the mentality that we're dealing with here. Last Sunday, this article says, El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, appeared to celebrate the arrival of deportees as he posted a video of shackled men being taken off a plane and processed for detention. He posted it to his social media, remarking on the U.S. district judge who said it shouldn't happen. Bukele's caption read, "Oopsie, too late." And he's a staunch Trump ally and the same mentality. He calls himself the world's coolest dictator, and he is putting these people in his prison in exchange for $6 million a year. And the judge who said, turn the planes around, they must not be taken to El Salvador, was ignored. And then he said, I want to know where the planes were when I made that order, when they left America, when they landed in El Salvador, to see if you have gone against my order. And the Trump regime is saying we are invoking something called state secrets privilege. In other words, it's a state secret, even though loads of people know the answer. It's a state secret, and we're not telling you. Now, this process of picking out people just because they have tattoos and saying that proves you're a gang member is not confined to one gay man. Here's some more. We're finally seeing the evidence against the migrants deported by Trump. It's unbelievable. Now, I have no problem with migrants involved in violence and involved in gangs and all that stuff to be removed from the country. But that's not what's happening to increasingly large numbers of people, thanks to these quotas. So after the Trump administration rounded up hundreds of Venezuelan migrants around the country without notice or court hearings and sent them off to this prison in El Salvador, we're finally getting details of who was deported and why. The more we learn, the more obvious it becomes why the government is so eager to expel these individuals without any semblance of due process. It claims that these men are terrorists by virtue of their alleged membership in the Tren de Aragua gang from Venezuela, but evidence of this affiliation is weak to the point of non-existence. There's a guy called Barrios, one victim of these deportations. He's a professional soccer player. He fled Venezuela after protesting against the dictator Maduro and was peacefully living in the United States until the government snatched him up and deported him to El Salvador. His attorney submitted a declaration in federal court that detailed the disturbing reasons why her client was targeted by immigration and customs enforcement. And after entering the U.S. last year, Barrios was scheduled to have an asylum hearing in April, but on Saturday he was arrested, held in San Diego, and then shipped off to El Salvador. Now, why? Okay, well, he had a tattoo. All right. A tattoo on his arm of a crown sitting atop a soccer ball. that federal immigration authorities allege is proof of gang membership. In reality, the tattoo was inspired by his favorite football team, Real Madrid. And that's what the tattoo was. He was also accused of being a member of this gang because he posted a photo of himself on social media in where he's gesturing with both hands with his middle fingers down. This federal agent's claim was also proof of gang membership, except that Barrios's hand gesture also means I love you in sign language. Some more. We've had someone known as EV. He's a member of the gang because of his tattoo, which features anime, flowers, and animals, as well as a crown of thorns. Agents reportedly believe the crown indicates gang membership, but his lawyer explained it is in fact a tribute to his grandmother, who has her date of death at the base of the crown. Others facing similar accusations, one migrant known as JABV has tattoos of a rose, a clock, and a crown with his son's name on it. And he's never been arrested, never charged, and never convicted of a crime in either Venezuela or the United States. But they say these tattoos were proof that he's a member of this gang. Another guy had a rosary with his partner's name on the tattoo, and a third that is a rose and a clock. None have a connection to a gang. And someone else has tattoos of a Bible verse and a rose with money as petals. And another one has a tattoo celebrating his daughter. And this is the reason to justify sending these people without any due process to this horror prison in El Salvador. And here's a report on some of the other things that have been going on because of these quotas.
What was intended as a short vacation turned into a nightmare. German tourist Lukas Silaf was detained upon arrival in the US and hauled into a detention facility.
They put me in chains everywhere, around my stomach, on my hands, my feet. Then they put me in a van and drove me to the detention center in Satinko.
Lucas was returning to the US from a vacation in Mexico. He says he had a valid US tourist visa, but ended up spending 16 days in detention before being allowed to return to Germany. And his arrest is part of an apparent trend involving temporary visa holders and visitors being detained by US border officials on their way into the country. Canadian actress Jasmine Mooney has a similar story. She was detained for 12 days over an incomplete visa.
There was no heads up. Next thing you know, I'm taken and for 2 weeks haven't been told anything, moved in different cells, sleeping on cement, sleeping in different jail cells. Like, it just, nothing makes sense to me.
A French scientist, in turn, was denied entry into the US after his phone was searched by customs. Officials at the airport found messages criticizing the Trump administration's cuts to science programs. All deportees say they did not violate US immigration policies nor commit any crimes. The incidents follow heightened immigration enforcement under the Trump administration. The White House says it's removing known immigrant criminals.
The president is using every lever of his executive authority and his constitutional authority within the bounds of the immigration laws of our country to ensure that our streets are safer for law-abiding American citizens.
It comes to something when governments in Europe are warning their citizens about traveling to America and what could happen. Trump's US immigration crackdown hits British tourists as border guards aggressively question holidaymakers. Tourists planning trips to the US are being warned of increasingly tough questioning at border control that could see them barred from entry or even detained amid Donald Trump's immigration crackdown, it emerged today. The US border officials have been using more aggressive methods with holidaymakers and legal immigrants, with the Trump administration calling it enhanced vetting. Britain's Foreign Office has revised its advice for citizens traveling to the US to include a warning that anyone found breaking the rules, or not, it seems, may be liable to arrest or detention. And this is just the start. I mean, how long has the guy been in office the second time? And the dark Enlightenment and its acceleration have a long way to go yet. Now, one of the things I've been trying to get across to MAGA Trump supporters, the unquestioning Trump supporters, is that they don't care about you, these people. The Trump regime is awash with billionaires and big tech billionaires. They couldn't give a damn about you. And yet the image is, oh, Trump stands for the working people. No, he doesn't. He doesn't understand you. He understands your mentality. That's how he manipulates you. But he doesn't understand your life. And here's the comment this week by Trump's Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, another billionaire. And it absolutely captured the mentality of these people. Musk and Trump are going after Social Security in their dictatorship. And Lutnick was asked about this, and he said that those who complained if their Social Security check didn't arrive must, in effect, be fraudsters.
Let's say Social Security didn't send out their checks this month. My mother-in-law, who's 94, she wouldn't call and complain. She just wouldn't. She'd think something got messed up, and she'll get it next month.
Yeah.
A fraudster always makes the loudest noise, screaming, yelling, and complaining.
Well, one question is, why is his mother-in-law, when he's a billionaire, having Social Security checks? And of course she doesn't worry about them with the kind of money that family has. These people don't understand the working class and the people who survive from check to check. They have contempt for you, MAGA. You're just voting fodder to them. So this is Peter Thiel, the guy who wants you to live in a world controlled by AI under the structure of the dark Enlightenment. He's saying here, in effect, that only those who go to Harvard and Ivy League universities should have the right to rule you. The elite, as he calls it, most appropriately.
Obama was Harvard Law. I think Kerry was Harvard undergrad. And there was some way, the Democratic Party used to be more elite. And then when Biden said he was a transitional candidate, it wasn't a transition. He was not going to have a sex change operation, but it was transitional from smart to dumb, from elite to very non-elite. And then, Kamala was even, Howard was not Harvard. You couldn't even point this out. This is probably a racist thing to say or something. Right. And then by the time you get to Walz, it's way worse. The credentials are even dumber than Kamala's. There are no smart people left.
So there you go. Peter Thiel, another billionaire who went to Stanford University and Stanford Law School and thinks that makes him smart. Well, mate, I left school at 15 to play football. And in terms of real intelligence, I'd have you for breakfast, dinner, and tea, and so would endless other people who've never seen an Ivy League university. And if you want to test it out, I'm always available. That's the public section then of the Dot Connector this week. If you want to see the rest, and I'm going to get into a load of stuff this week, not least that classified, ridiculous story I talked about earlier. And to see that, you can go to iconic.com after 5 p.m. UK time every Thursday. Bye for now.